Chapter 7. El Árbol. Debajo de un árbol reposan mis lindas mariposas. The tree. Under a tree rest my beautiful butterflies. We'd wanted to stay at a motel, but Inez and her family insisted on boarding us for the night. In the small kitchen at the back of the house, we ate traditional birthday fare. Inez and her mother served us plateful after plateful of enchiladas de mole. The chocolatey sauce of the chicken enchiladas spilled out of the rolled-up tortillas and mixed in with the rice and beans, making the dish extra delicious. We gorged ourselves till we thought we'd pop. Then for dessert, the women brought us generally cut slices of pearly white cake. It was moist and creamy and absolutely too much for our already bursting stomachs, but it was scrumptious, so we had 2 slices each. During the meal, however, the Spanish Inquisition began. We had to think of some quick answers because even though we'd expected a full-on interrogation, we hadn't planned anything that came out of our mouths. Luckily, the girls remembered our little talk about having Juanita and I explain things without giving out too much information. For the most part, they remained silent and didn't contradict or add anything to whatever we said. "But where is your mama?" Inez's mother asked as she passed out the frothy white cake slices. "She's at home," I said, putting a forkful of cake in my mouth to stop myself from having to give out any more details than were absolutely necessary. Our number one rule about answering inopportune questions from strangers was don't add too much cream to the tacos. In other words, keep the answers simple and plain. Like Mama always says, nobody needs to know all of our business. At home? Inez's mother crinkled her eyebrows together, and I concentrated on my next bite of cake. "Working," Delia said, acting nonchalant. "She's married to her job. She hasn't been able to take a vacation in years." "So who takes care of you?" Inez asked, turning her attention to Delia. "Who drove you here?" "I did. I'm old enough," I said, quickly jumping in before anyone else said anything too outrageous. "See, of course." Her eyes said she didn't believe me. "And how old are you?" Inez's mother asked. "You don't look older than 14. "I'm actually 18, I said, concentrating on my cake again. "The women in my family look younger than we actually are. We take after my grandmother. She's 71 years old, but she doesn't look a day over 50. Not that I'd seen my abuela since I was 10, but it was the only justification I could think of." "I see," Inez said, looking to her mother again. "And where does your abuela live?" I yawned and stretched and made a show of being ready for bed. "Not too far from here," I mumbled. "Really?" Inez's face changed then. She looked more interested, more alert, like a squirrel when she lifts herself on her hind legs and sniffs the air with instinctual intelligence. "Yes, we'll be seeing her in the morning," I said without really knowing why. Maybe it was nervousness that made me say it, or maybe the decision had already been made and it had just been sitting there in my mind, in my heart, waiting to be put into words. I didn't understand how or why, but somewhere between the enchiladas and the birthday cake, I decided to honor La Llorona's request, to run the course of our journey and try to find true happiness for my sisters and myself. And that meant going to visit Abuelita. It seemed to me that we had been through too much to not finish what we'd started. Around the small round table, every one of my sisters stopped eating, stared, and then smiled at me. Their joy was evident in the way they nodded and grinned while they resumed shoving cake into their mouths with reckless abandon. Zaragoza made her way around in the tight little kitchen to sit between me and Inez. "Oh?" "Yes," I said, thinking on my feet. "Mama told her about the body we found, and she wanted to help. After they talked it over, Abuelita told us how to get there. It was really very easy." "Super easy," Delia interjected, shoving another forkful of cake in her mouth. "Well, we should call them and thank them. Let them know you've arrived safely." "We don't want either of them to worry," Inez's mother said. "She doesn't have a phone," Delia said, joining the conversation with the same conviction as Delia and I. "I mean, my mother does, but what she means is that our mother doesn't answer her cell phone at work, and she's on night shift right now," I interrupted, coming to Delia's rescue. She was always the worst at keeping things from strangers. She was just too candid. "It will be all right," I continued. "We'll call them tomorrow after Mama gets home from work and Abuelita is awake." "I think we should try to get in touch with someone tonight," Inez insisted. "Don't you, Mama?" "No," I said emphatically, hoping they would listen to us. "Why not?" Inez asked. Because... I tried to think of something else to say, something totally convincing, but nothing came to mind. I started to panic, and I realized I was holding my breath. Then, remembering La Llorona's words and the effect of the ear pendant had on the duty officer at customs, I reached up to my left ear and flicked my index finger against the nestling orbs. They tinkled lightly, and I could feel them twirling around each other, humming against my cheek. I turned my face slightly toward Inez and her mother to call attention to the spinning argollas as I whispered the enchantment. Aztec Queen, Tonantzin, Holy Mother of all mankind, give us your magical assistance. Make these women believe and help us leave. What is going on? Juanita leaned close to me to look at my whirling ear pendant. The rest of the girls did the same from around the table. Why is your earring spinning? And what was that you said? She reached over to touch La Llorona's magical gift. Don't touch it, I whispered. It's a prop to help me hypnotize him. Since when do you know how to hypnotize people? Delia asked, a frown of disbelief furrowing between her brows. Who cares? It's working, Juanita said, putting a finger over her lips. Look at their eyes. They look like cats. I like your earrings, Zaragoza said, reaching for them. They look very old, like something the ancient Aztecas used to wear. They were a gift, I said, trying not to deviate too far from the original lie I told the Border Patrol agent early that morning. Zaragoza took another sip from her coffee. Oh? Who gave them to you? Abuelita Remedios, I lied, relieved to see that the woman had dropped their concerns. She's very generous. Of course. Inez's pupils were perfectly dilated, giving her a dazed expression. Her mother's pupils were dilated too. The spell was working. I'm glad you're going to a relative's house. It's not safe for you girls to be traveling in Mexico alone. I kept my voice even, willing the spell to keep them charmed by our lies for as long as remained in their house. Well, like I said, our grandmother lives down the road about 20 miles away between here and Ejido de La Paloma. This was more like a quick stop along the way. It wasn't a total lie either. Hacienda Dorada was technically located somewhere in the wilderness between El Sacrificio and Ejido La Paloma. There were a series of unmarked roads that led to Hacienda Dorada from El Sacrificio. Papa had outlined them on his road map when I was 10 years old to show me where we were going the last time we visited Abuelito Remedios. Juanita had looked it up while I was driving earlier today. So, you're going to visit your grandmother. That's nice. I bet you're excited about that, Inez's mother exclaimed. She smiled at Pita, who was shoveling cake into her mouth without saying a word. Pita was all bug-eyed and big-eared, nodding like a ratoncita, nervous as a little mouse sitting precariously on the edge of a wooden trap. By the time we were done eating and answering questions, it was almost midnight. We sat at the table yawning in front of our hostesses who were cleaning up after the party. When they saw us practically falling out of our chairs, Inez insisted we follow her down the hall.